Hello, my name is Gabe.
Hello, my name is Tucker.
And this is the Holy Crow Show podcast.
Number 1.
What?
What is it even? I'm coming and show. Fuck, why is it so hard?
I know.
Boom. Welcome to the Holy Crow Show podcast. This is podcast number 1. And today we have chosen a topic which I think is appropriate, it being Pride Month and all. Don't you agree?
I do agree.
So what are we talking about today, dear Gaberoni?
We're talking about coming out.
Let's introduce ourselves.
I'm Gabe, and I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a lesbian for the most part, and I have a gender-neutral name, so it's enough to throw people off. Occupation? Tattoo artist. I tattoo at Outlaw Country Tattoo. Where we run a super queer tattoo shop where, oh my god, it's just the bantering every single day. It's like a barber shop, but imagine talking about gay sex all the time.
And I'm Tucker. I'm the manager at Outlaw Country. I'm 28 years old. Gabe just turned 29. I use he, him pronouns. We've been best friends since high school for about 11 years, I think. Give or take.
Well, I want to say that I think that one of the biggest things that that makes it so that we wanted to start this, and we wanted to start this with the coming out video first, would be the fact, like, the reasoning behind it would be that I believe that our friendship started around the time when we were coming out, and I think that that would, you know, not only were we coming out and that would change our personal lives forever, but I think that meeting each other during that time would change our lives together as we would continue to grow for seemingly forever. I don't know if it's going to be the rest of our lives.
How could you say that? Of course it's going to be the rest of our lives.
It might be fucking done tomorrow.
For those of you who don't know us, we're like fucking life partners. We live together. We own a business together. We're in a band together.
We're like 10 years in now?
Yeah. We're like a married couple, but we're not sexual partners.
I'd like to be.
This is news to me.
JK. Do you have like a secret butch on butch undertone? That just hasn't been, like, nurtured yet?
I love a masculine man. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On this episode, we're just gonna paint Tucker's favorite portrait. Perfect portrait of a man.
I mean, we're gonna talk about our sexuality. We're gonna talk about our gender. It is, you know, and this is all from our perspective and our experience. In no way do we represent everybody from the LGBTQ plus community. This is just our story.
We're a very unique duo, I would say, with very unique points of views and opinions. Somebody dare me to kiss a girl.
Wasn't that was your first too,
Somebody
wasn't it?
tell me to do it because I can't do it alone. Anyway, so yes, Tucker and I bonded over the fact that, well, like, and also, like,
we
Tucker,
both totally knew each other was gay.
We did.
Yeah. We were both masculine
We were out
gays.
by then.
Yeah. We both had our first girlfriends.
Yeah.
How many times did you have to come out?
I don't know how many times I had to come out. What are you talking about?
When I say that, I mean, like, how many times have you come out as different things?
Well, I've come many times.
Okay, first, wait, hold on.
I mean, what is coming out?
Coming out is where you have to, like, present to
The audience.
the public, the audience, the public, but also, like, friends and family, what your sexual identity is, because at the time it was still not necessarily taboo, but it was like around 2007, 2008. It was still only really becoming where we live
In our
more
experience.
accepted. So we both came out as lesbians when we were around 16. I was like maybe 15 actually.
I mean, yeah, like I have a hard time figuring out when I came out as bi and when I came out as a lesbian. It just feels like it just kind of happened and it was just happening.
I feel like that was a big thing for people during that era of high school to come out as bi first and then just admit later on like, nah, I'm just full les or full gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was more of a like, it was easier to come out as bi first than to come out as full gay or full les because I don't know, I felt like it was easier.
I mean, I feel like when I came out as bi is like the feeling of really truly feeling my root come to me, that consciousness arise, because I think that before I was like, oh, I'm straight, I'm just obsessed with girls. Like, I just have this casual obsession with my friends where I just want to lie on top of them. Yeah, like, I think that, well, for me, like, I think my true consciousness arose and I was like, I'm gonna say bi, because that's, at the time, like, what I felt like using, I guess, as an identity. But my mom had rented the movie Monster, and I was watching this and I was like, oh man, the way that, the person playing Aileen Wuornos was like obsessed with this girl. It just clicked. I was like, oh, obsession equals I'm gay. So that, I like to think of the movie Monster, as sad as it is, as my root. And I'm kind of proud of it.
I was totally different, actually. It was totally different for me.
Yeah?
I had crushes, and I knew they were crushes on girls from about 4 years old. Yeah, it was always there, but it was easy to not, like, totally, fully acknowledge it until my first girl obsession. Like, I had crushes, little baby crushes on, like, classmates and shit when I was really young. And then I didn't have, like, a really big crush on someone that I knew until I was about 14. But two things that I definitely knew since I was young was that I wanted to be a boy and that I liked girls. It was more about accepting it in those terms as, like, accepting the fact that I was gay, and then later on realizing that I could be a boy, because that's how I felt. So they were two different discoveries, but, like, coming to terms with the fact that I was and would be considered gay happened, like, fairly early on for me. It was something I always pushed away. But I knew that the obsession with girls wasn't just, like, an innocent obsession. I knew that I liked girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like us coming together was like a realization at the time that we were like on a similar, like in a similar place on the gender spectrum. Me being like really butch, borderline trans.
Butch lesbians.
Yeah.
And then later on, we almost, like, came to the conclusion at the same time with each other. I remember you were probably, like, the first person who felt similar feelings to me that I identified with as, like, a butch lesbian. And then I remember one time we were smoking weed on the rocks by my house, and you asked me a very specific question that was like, do you feel like you're a boy on the inside? Something along those lines. And I was like, yeah. And then we had that in common.
And then, yeah, Tucker was like, I'm a boy on the beach in the rocks. That's just like the image that I have is like, you were just like, yeah, I'm a boy. Like, I am one.
But I didn't come out as trans until, like, maybe a year later.
No, well, I think that, like, at the time, maybe we didn't, like, understand, like, the full complexity of how that works.
Yeah.
All that we really knew is that that's what you were, regardless of, what...
Didn't have the words for it.
We didn't have the words for it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know the words or identified with the words transgender until I met other people who were trans among my friends. And then I didn't come out until we were on our first tour. Or more specifically, that's when I didn't necessarily come out. I changed my name and pronouns.
I love how Tucker, like, you know, there's a lot of trans kids out there, and they get to pull out, like, the old photos in the photo album when they looked really femme, or, you know, what they would call girly or whatever. And then, you know, it's like a fun game of comparing and seeing, you know, that shift. But Tucker's photo album doesn't really have that. He was, like, a little friggin' tomboy since, like, I don't know, as soon as he, like, opened his eyes, he was, like, putting on baseball caps and stuff, and it's just, like, really funny to try to find that femmy photo, and there really isn't.
There are.
Yeah.
The times when I was forced to wear a dress, and the, like, maybe 3 or 4 years that I had a kind of, like, a hair bob cut. And then when I was, like, 6 or 7 is when I was able to convince my mom to let me get it cut more like a boy, and that was the time when it was cut off from, like, dresses. But there were definitely, like, formal occasions. There's pictures, but for the most part, I will show you pictures from when I'm, like, 2 years old, or 5 years old, or 7 years old, where I just look like a boy. So when I came out to my parents as trans, I often tried to stress the fact of, like, couldn't you always kind of see that, you know, like, I didn't want to wear the dresses, I wanted to have the short hair, I wanted to play the sports. But I think there was also a bit of a contradictory thing where I did enjoy playing with dolls sometimes, you know. Like, my family members would get me Barbies, and despite the fact that I hated that they got me Barbies, I would still play with them. So I think there was, like, the little hint of femininity in me that I still have today that's, like, kind of a very maternal side of me. Playing, like, with babies, baby dolls and shit like that, that they kind of maybe held on to.
You have a hard time letting go of the title lesbian, in which you've decided just not to, which is...
I mean, I don't, like, call myself a lesbian. I call myself a trans man. But the exclusion from the lesbian community kind of irks me a little bit.
Yeah, but if one says lesbian party, you're like, I want to go to the lesbian party.
Yeah.
I'm part of the lesbian
There's
party.
a part of me, I feel like, as a trans person, I don't want to forget my past identity as a lesbian and as a girl, because despite the fact, like, if it was a different world, then I could have lived as a boy my entire life, as a trans boy my entire life. That would have been different, you know, because then I would have been able to identify as a boy my entire life. Which I did in some part of me, but another part of me was like, I lived as a girl, I lived as a lesbian for such a long time. I don't want people to kind of swipe that under the rug. And I don't want to swipe it under the rug, because it was a big part of my identity. Yeah, so that's my gender identity, is for sure. It's like, you know, it's a pie chart. I feel like everybody's gender identity and sexuality is more like a pie chart than, like, one exact thing. For some people, it definitely is, you know, only attracted to a certain sex or gender. But I feel like more people tend to have, like, small percentages of other things. What about your parents? Did you have a definitive moment of coming out to your parents?
Well, you know, like, with me growing up as a kid, like, I was always just an artist, right? Which I think is, like, a pretty gender-neutral activity. Maybe the content of what I was drawing was debatable, you know.
I don't know what you drew.
Well, I mean, I drew mostly dragons over and over and over again. Dragons, crazy dragons. But when I was, like, I think I was, like, 3 or 4, there's a story that my mom has, where my parents went to a party and they brought the kids with them to the party with a bunch of grown-ups, and they knew that if they just sat me down with a pen and paper, I would just, like, be busy all night and they could just party, right? So they sat me down with a pen and paper and I was just drawing, and I think I had, like, some color pencils or some colored crayons or whatever, and my mom's friend at the time, like, came in and checked on me and was like, oh, what are you drawing? Into which I replied, a penis party. I had drawn, like, I don't know, like 10 penises having a party.
Oh my god.
And I called it a penis party.
Oh, I didn't know this story.
Yeah.
Wow. What was her reaction?
I don't know. I was 3 or 4. I don't
yeah.
remember. You know, like I was just like, it's just a penis party. So dolls and like tea parties and things like that was like never really my
Yeah,
thing.
it was never really there. I mean, you also like
I
had
like
a
stuffed
brother.
animals.
Yeah.
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 And which I had like all of the dragons that TY had ever released, even the ones that were like $100 for like the little tiny one.
Oh my God.
I mean, I had one that was that pricey, and it was $75, which at the time in the '90s or in the
90s.
early 2000s, I think,
Okay.
was really expensive, and I got it for my birthday. It was like my big birthday present was this TY dragon. That was pricey. My dad was like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
So what about you? What about your gender identity?
I think my gender identity is complex, but I keep it to myself. You know.
You identify in the public as a lesbian.
Yeah. Then I use like the she and the her pronouns, but I think that there's like a lot of complicated feelings around carrying the identity of being a woman. Like it feels like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it also didn't feel like I feel like I tried on some male pronouns and I tried on like a male identity and that didn't work either. And then like the whole like queer non-binary like gender neutral pronouns didn't feel right either. So now I'm just like, you know what? I might never figure it out. And I think that's okay too, you know.
You used to have in like the last year of high school in your early 20s just a hat that just said fuck gender on it.
Yeah, I was just like, fuck it.
Yeah. I always kind of thought partially that one of the reasons that you didn't identify as trans masculine was because of the kind of the honestly like the medical system, because in order to achieve the goal of being slightly more masculine in the way that you wanted to be, it was a bit too much, not like effort, but emotional effort to go through. Like you were always kind of like, I don't want to bother with chest surgery because it's so expensive and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Because I kind of feel like you're just so free-spirited that you don't want to have to rely on medication or surgeries to represent yourself.
Yeah, you know, like
that was just how I felt from what you expressed.
Yeah, I think that that's relatively accurate for sure. You know, yeah, I feel like that's accurate.
Okay.
It's just kind of like I got to a certain point where I figured it out enough, and although there was like plenty more to figure it out, I was just like, there's just some things that I won't ever know if I want or not want. And so there's a lot that's just kind of like pushed back in behind of the things to do list in this life. So I think that doing something like transitioning or shifting in any kind of way that isn't what I am now, I think that it's just maybe not going to happen this lifetime. Mm-hmm.
Although I've said this to you several times that if I ever became rich and offered to pay for your chest surgery, you would take me up on it.
I might.
Yeah. I mean, you have really small tits anyway.
Yeah.
So you've kind of, like, just gotten really good at ignoring them.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things I do for gender affirming would be like, yeah, like I have small tits, so there's like not a whole lot to deal with. But I'll just like every day I put on like an underwear shirt under my t-shirt and I tuck it into my pants and it holds down my tits a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you most of the time don't look like you have tits.
Yeah.
Which I envy.
I feel like I have a little bit of transness and it's very low key.
Yeah. So sexuality then.
Sexuality.
How you identify now versus how you identify when you came out.
I think sexuality is also complicated, but not complicated at the same time. Like,
for you.
For me, I feel like, yeah, like, I think my sexuality is lesbianism, but that's not necessarily, like, exclusive to somebody's anatomy, or at least, like, it hasn't been in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I feel good about that. I'm proud about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I like girls. Yeah, I think my sexuality is still complicated. There's still some things like that need figuring out. Maybe they won't be figured out. But I feel like I'm in a place where I know what I want and I know how to have a good time.
And also, you've never really been ever sexually attracted to like really masculine people. No. You're pretty into like femininity.
Yeah.
You say that so convincingly.
I mean, I think that there's some people that have been like relatively like butch, and when I say butch, I mean like maybe they're to me seem a little more femme on the scale, but would identify with their butch identity. So like I respect that too, you know. So it's hard to say that, you know, my sexuality is exclusive to femmes, but I have seen a lot of femmes, but I've also seen some people who identify as butch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Or people who waver between the two depending on how they feel at the time.
Yeah. So technically you kind of have dated like gender neutral people or like gender fluid people, but maybe they just didn't identify as gender fluid people at the time or with they pronouns.
Yeah. If we're looking at femme and butch as gender identities.
Yeah.
Which are they? They're like a subsection of gender identity.
Yeah.
To be like, or like this other section, or like some people do identify them in a really gender way, and some of them identify it, I think, differently with those. I mean, like, well, it's just like my outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, yeah. It's it's all very complex. I mean, it could be pretty simple, but nobody's identity is that simple because we're all so different. We all have such different experiences in life. So you can't really put someone in a box.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is like nobody just fits inside a box. Which is why I was talking about like pie charts and like percentages. Because I feel like everybody has like a bunch of, you know, little percentages for sure. Well, my sexuality is pretty complex.
I feel like I would have a really difficult time being like one of those people who like go around talking about gender and identity and what that is, like you know, doing presentations on the LGBTQ plus community. I feel like I would have a hard time doing that presentation, being like, well, I can only speak for myself, and then people would be like, well, we hired you to speak for everybody.
Yeah, but that's the unfortunate thing about doing stuff like that, is you can't expect one person to be able to talk about and represent everybody else. So in my experience, like, I have done kind of talks like that for sure, whether it was like individually with people who knew nothing about the subject, or like one time I did go to a sexuality class at a university and talked about gender and identity, and I was clear about the fact that like I'm talking about my personal experience.
But if you want like gay version of Jay and Silent Bob, like that's what we're serving.
Yeah, minus the fact that we're both talkative like Jay, and we're both fucking...
Oh, yeah. There's that, and also you don't smoke weed anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, my sexuality was really simple up until the point, like, a few years after I came out as gay. Because from childhood, I knew that I liked girls. And I guess maybe my obsession with penises was kind of like your obsession with women, where I was just like, I justified it in the way that I felt like my obsession with penises was just because I wanted one so badly, and so they fascinated me.
Do you want me to draw you a penis party?
Yeah.
Because I could do that.
I would love that. Okay. I'll put it on my wall.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Before I came out as gay, there were maybe a few times when I was like, if I was a straight woman, this cisgendered man, I would, like, want to marry him. You know, but I didn't really think about sex at those times. I just thought, like, oh, if I was a straight girl, I would, you know, want to marry this guy. But then I had a sexual experience with a guy after coming out. And I guess from that point on, I was like, well, I I'm going to keep identifying as gay, as like a gay woman, but I guess like I kind of like dicks too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so at this point my sexuality is kind of like sexually I'm attracted to men, but not really romantically. Like I don't see myself dating a guy. I definitely prefer women and still really want to have a wife. But dicks are fun sometimes. I actually feel like there are a lot of lesbians who identify that way. Like, they can be sexually attracted to men, but not romantically.
Mm.
So, like, they have enjoyed sex with men. A lot of the time, they say things like, you know, I like the dick, just not what's attached to it. Right?
Mm.
Like, I kind of identify with that. Like, I'm cool to bro down with a guy and hang out and be, like, friends.
And then touch his dick.
Yeah, and then touch his dick, which has happened.
Like every time
No,
that you have a penis party.
No.
Can you think of a time where you had a penis party and
I don't know what you
just
mean
being
by a
bros?
penis party. There are plenty of times that I've just been bros with someone and not touched their dick. I've only touched.
I know. What
like
I'm saying,
3
like
dicks.
the dicks that you've touched, the relationship
We're all
that
really
you,
broy.
yeah. Like you had a bro relationship with the person of each dick that you touched.
For sure. And in that way, you know, I kind of see myself, that's like my sexuality is almost like from a man's perspective, you know, like I'm down with the D and we just bros.
Your sexuality is circle jerks.
Yeah, it totally is. But there's this very tiny part of me that like identifies with my vagina as like, I want to be pounded as a woman. I don't usually talk about that. But there's been times where I've just like had fantasies about it.
Mm.
But it's a very small percentage. So, like I said, my I feel like my sexuality is complex because I feel like I'm attracted to both men and women from both a male and female point of view.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the end.
I am really gay.
I am a lesbian.
I am really gay.
But I'm more gay than you.
I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. I'm more gay than you. We are gay. So if you guys have topics or suggestions of things that you want us to talk about, leave a comment below and we will make more videos.
Bye.
Bye.